This is a coordination between the Arab American National Museum's Oral History Project as well as the Ramallah Preservation Project. Today we have with us Paul Zarou. Paul, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. I was born and raised in New York. My parents are from Ramallah. My mom came here when she, I think, was 14. My dad in his early 20s. And they, like a lot of Arab, sort of had that arranged marriage where they met each other and got engaged and got married. So I spent my youth in New York. Around the time of school, after high school, I started school, but then my dad and I got involved in a business. We moved down to Virginia, Northern Virginia, stayed there for a while, a number of years. He passed away suddenly, unfortunately, sadly, at a young age. And I ended up staying in Northern Virginia for a while and moving to LA with my first wife. And I've been in LA ever since. Although I do miss the East Coast and I miss New York. Most, if not all, my family are still in New York. So I'm very fond of it.
Absolutely. What kind of business did you guys have? Did your father have?
We started an ice cream business in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
They had ice cream trucks and the like. After he passed, I tried to maintain it. I was young. I was 19. I tried to maintain it. I found somebody to buy me out and to continue to fund the business, and it continued for quite some time after.
How did you guys get into ice cream?
It was something my father uncovered. You know, it's just how the local. So it's a franchise where it's not a franchise; it's an ownership where you own the facility, sell rent the vehicles, and sell the ice cream. And people get areas that they go and sell on the street. So it's seasonal, obviously, on the East Coast. It's I think a 9-month season.
Right. And what did your parents do before they came to the United States?
Well, my mom was young. She was 14. She was a student. My dad, by trade, was an electrician. And I think he came here as an electrician for trade school. And I think his trade school visa was running out, and I think marriage was an option. So I don't know if he was ready to get married, but they got married. There was an arranged marriage, and they got married.
So your mom was living here?
My mom was living here.
Okay.
She came here 14 when with her parents and siblings when she crossed the ocean. A bumpy. She recalled it to me. She passed in 17. It was a bumpy ride to get here, but she embraced high school and finished high school and actually got married at, I think she was 19 or 20, something in that range, and ended up finishing high school. And I was born not so long after, 9 months after.
And are you the only sibling? Or
No, I have a sister and brother.
Sister and
So
brother.
I'm the oldest.
Okay. And what were your parents' names?
My father's Aziz and my mom's Leila.
Layla. What family was your mother from?
She was from Dar Isa. Her father was
Isa.
Jacob Isa.
Okay.
And my dad is obviously Dar Zarou.
Okay. And did your grandparents live with you? Were they living overseas still?
No, it's a long story, but my grandfather on my father's side was a kind of an interesting character, if you will. He had come over here, I think, when my father was young, sort of didn't look back. So we did reconnect with him a bit when my dad did get here, but he also passed rather young in the 60s. And my mom's parents did live in the U.S. Not far from us, so I did get a chance to see them. My mother has I have 2 aunts and an uncle who've all done well. My uncle's a doctor, retired now, but has been very successful. And then my aunts have done well in their families, in their family life.
That's awesome. And did you ever, as a kid, travel to Palestine, or was
I-
most of your childhood in the U.S.?
No, I have not had that opportunity. I spent most of my childhood in the U.S., surrounded by family, surrounded by community. There's a lot of, it was a big population, big Ramallah population in Long Island where I was raised. And so I had the benefit of cousins and community. And I remember it distinctly, and the support and the love and the turmoil and all that family and community bring. So that was very, a treasured childhood in the context of, having, that around me.
And I know you wrote a book, Arab Boy Delivered.
Yes.
And was that the sort of inspiration for your book?
So, a history on the writing is I've been writing for years, on and off, probably about 20, 25 years. And I've written screenplays of a variety of topics. And when I thought about how I wanted to frame this story that came to me, I thought it was best written in a novel form. And I proceeded. So what inspired me is this idea of a young man. While I drew from personal experience, it is fiction. And what inspired me is a young man growing up in the late 60s of from Palestinian immigrant parents, and the challenges he may face. The conflict is, adolescence is tough enough. Growing up and coming of age is tough enough. Layer that with growing up, being a child of immigrants, that's another challenge. Being a child of immigrants from Palestine right after the '67 war, that adds even more conflict. So I came up with the idea of, and again, my dad did own grocery stores, so I had that experience to draw on a little bit. But while it's, again, drawn from personal experience, it is fiction. And I like the backdrop of the late 60s because historically in this country there was so much going on beyond the fact that obviously the war had for Palestine and Israel was committed, and the occupation began in the rest of Palestine. The conflict in this country with the Vietnam War, with the civil rights movement, with women's rights, all those elements make up a part of that storyline.
Okay, and can you tell a little bit about maybe some of your personal experiences as a kid growing up in the 60s and 70s? What was that like for you as a Palestinian American?
Because we stayed close in our community, you felt that you weren't as, you had, how should I put this? You had community close to you. You had family close to you. So there was this sense that you were different. Clearly, when I went to school, I was different. I often laugh today about how when I went and took my za'atar sandwiches to school, I was made fun of because, what are you eating, dirt? And now I go into a 5-star restaurant and they're sprinkling za'atar on these exotic dishes that I'm paying an outrageous amount of money for. And they think they're cool. Well, listen, I was cool back then with my za'atar sandwiches. So just, you can kiss my za'atar. It's funny how this appropriation of cuisine is taking place. So as a child, there were times you were discriminated against. How do you distinguish that from just the normal bullying that children go through? I think as you get older, where you see that you get into the workforce or you come in contact with people in different parts of the country, you see that discrimination more overtly versus subvertly. I've often said that you don't know when somebody's discriminated against you. They're not that open. They make a decision, maybe not to hire you. Maybe, and why is that? Was it experience? Did they have a different candidate that they thought was better? Or was it something about your background that they didn't like? So, I have had the good fortune of rising above it, but I have certainly run into it. I know that at one grocery store, we did run into criticism and discrimination because we were the Arab family buying this with the Palestinian family buying this grocery store. So that was an element that took place for me, real, that I added to the story that I could draw from. So.
Okay, and was like the area that you lived in, was it like primarily like Italians,
so
Eastern Europeans?
We lived on Long Island, and it was sort of a melting pot, right? And you had different neighborhoods. You had black neighborhoods at the time. You had Jewish neighborhoods. You had Italian neighborhoods. This grocery store we bought at the time was predominantly in an Italian neighborhood that was changing in demographics over the course of the years that we were there. So again, no one likes change. Everyone fears change. Everyone fears the unknown. What troubles me today is the vilification of people of color, people, Swana people of the Middle East, if you want to call it that. That's what's heartening. Or disheartening, I should say. That's what is troubling to me. The messaging of why is Palestine a four-letter word to a lot of people? Because of the misinformation, the misunderstanding. And that's something that we need to message differently. And we do that by rising above it, by doing and standing as individuals, contributing successfully. One of the things that I've enjoyed about our community is watching all the success that I see my extended family have, and in medicine, in business, in law, and it's exciting to see these people come up into being great citizens, contributing on many levels.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because a lot of times you'll hear people say that being Palestinian for them in the workplace is actually like, it's almost like this negative aspect, but the way that you put it is you rise above whatever expectations that people had of you as a Palestinian American. So for you as a Palestinian American, did you ever feel that you had like an unfair chance in any place that you worked in, or what kind of experiences did you face with that?
I felt by culture and nature, I had to work harder. There's in the novel, the main character, Michael, is embraced by the first black couple. And this black man who's a successful lawyer on Wall Street, there's a backstory about him, his father letting him know that you have to work harder, twice as hard, right, to rise above it. And I think that applies to us, to any person of color, to be on even footing. So you're more diligent, you're more focused, you're more disciplined. You rise as an example, and I see that happening today with the next generation, the generation after that coming up. I see them embracing their heritage. I see them rising above the noise and doing excellent work in whatever field they choose.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a little bit of a turn. We're going to go back to growing up. Do you have any fond or interesting memories, like a time you spent with your family, a time you guys maybe went on a vacation, maybe you guys had some sort of like a family get-together or like a family reunion?
Well, the community on Long Island was big and robust and active in terms of getting together and having haflas and going to the park for picnics and in general anyone's birthday or anyone's celebration or the holidays, Christmas, you had tons of people around you. You had tons of relatives, family, cousins. So those are fond memories for me. It's, you know, in the context of, you know, what's interesting, a fond memory of me is, for me, I should say, is the idea that I could go to any of my cousin's house and feel at home. You know, it was home. There was no distinction, and you know, that's, I think, is very cultural. My family life was a bit different. My parents, unfortunately, were one of the few that ended up divorcing, so we had different challenges. My parents were wonderful parents individually. I don't think they were, you know, good as a couple. I don't know that my dad was really ready for marriage, but the key here was, you know, they loved us and took and expressed that love for all the kids in a way that we understood it. But it was, you know, there was conflict through the divorce. So it wasn't typical, but, you know, again, you know, if you're asking me about a fond memory, there's the idea that I could go, when we moved to Virginia, I had relatives I could stay with without hesitation. You know, I could go knock on the door at any time. There was no idea that you had to be invited. There was the idea that this is home for you too. So to me, that's a strong memory for me of community and family.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So a little bit about your grandparents. Let's say, which grandparents were your favorite grandparents?
So it's interesting. I got to know my father's father a little bit, and he was this larger-than-life character. There was a story of him, because he was here illegally, so there was a story of him being caught by immigration, and they grabbed him and they put him on the boat, and he walked to the next gangplank and got off the gangplank, whatever it's called, the next bridge, and got off the boat. He was, I don't know he was worthy individual, but, you know, he was someone that came to, you know, our grandparents came to this country, often worked hard, sent money, and then ultimately sent for the family. I think this character just found the land of milk and honey and didn't look back. So he's, you know, there's a lot of stories associated with him, but he's part of my legacy and part of my family. My mom's parents were different, very strict, very rigid, very old school. My grandfather was very patriarchal. He favored the one son over his daughters, but that son turned out to be very fair-minded and good people. But he was a sales guy. What inspired me a little bit was he started out selling linens door to door, and he was a hard-working person that was very frugal and very careful about what he did and how he did it, and, you know, took care of his family financially. So he was quite a character, and he lived to be, I think, over 100. Wow. So so when I have been in my day job a professional sales person, and or sales manager for most of my career, if not all of it, and that's, I think, where I got a seed of inspiration from him.
It's a very Palestinian business to pass on to, sales.
Yeah, I think we're built to trade. We're traders. I love the profession. I enjoy, I'm a director of sales North America for a major technology company. I enjoy mentoring and supporting a sales team and watching them succeed. That's a great pleasure of mine, taking the experience I have and sharing it.
And you've been there how long? I believe you mentioned it earlier.
I've been with this company for about 3.5 years now,
okay,
almost 4,
okay.
Closing in on 4 years. But I've been in technology, again, over 40 years.
So your professions are pretty diverse. We have author, playwright, salesman. How do you balance all of these?
It's hard in the context that you have your vocation, your day job that keeps you alive and sustains you and supports you, and then you have your avocation, the thing that you have a passion for. So it's a balancing act, and there are times when I have to sacrifice my avocation for my vocation because of the demands of the day job. Because again, I'll circle back to what I said earlier. You need to do more. You need to work harder. You need to be disciplined. You can't let things drop. You have to be focused. So you don't want to be distracted, even though you're being pulled to do some other stuff. So it is truly a balancing act. There are periods of time when you can separate it and make time to do the writing that you have a passion for. And there are other times when you have to shift. And so I'll go for periods when, particularly if I start a new role, I have to focus. But then you start to be able to dovetail a little bit. And during your spare time, during evenings, during weekends, you're able to get some good work done, personally.
Okay. And then let's talk about where did you get your, what was your education life like? Like what was your alma mater?
So
what did you study?
I finished high school.
Okay.
I started at the community college, but I never finished college. I'm sort of self-taught. I pride myself on being very well read, and I, at times would go back and get started again, but can get distracted. There's elements of dyslexia that challenged me through school, so I wasn't a great student. So I had to learn how to learn, and in doing so, because I have a thirst to learn, I have a hunger. It's as if you're dyslexic, it's hard to read. I love reading, so it's just something you do. You learn to read. You drive yourself to do the things that you love.
Okay. So you had a few challenges when you were growing up. You had the challenge of being Palestinian American. You had the challenge of being dyslexic, and you had this passion to overcome. As you said earlier, you have to rise above, and that's really incredible. What's a piece of advice you could give to the Ramallah youth, or just anybody?
I would say, obviously follow your passion, but I would echo what I said earlier, which is understand that you've been given a gift of heritage. I mean, one of the elements that I found interesting as I was growing up is this conflict you have thinking, oh, geez, I'm an outsider. I'm not an American, but you're more American than some of the Americans that behave the way they do out here. But what happens is, as you come to terms with understanding the value of your heritage, you're richer for it. You have a textured life, having grown up in two different cultures. And many people in this country don't have that. And there's a great value in that. And draw from both. But do the best you can, rising above whatever challenge. It doesn't have to be discriminatory. It has to be with, whether it's a learning disability or whether it's a challenge at work that you need to resolve, or at school that's a tougher class that you need to take. Exercise the discipline, get the support you need, because there's a great deal of support out there, and rise above it. Again, I'm hesitant to speak that way because it sounds like a cliche, but what I'm saying is you have the resources and community around you to help support you. Call on that, we. One of the things about our community, and I hate generalizing, is there's a great deal of capability, intelligence, drive. Because of our heritage, if we want to go culturally, genetically, you're disposed to succeed, and hold on to that and understand it. It's it will take you far.
Thank you so much for that. And I just wanted to thank you for doing this interview with us. It was more than a pleasure to speak with you, and I just wanted to thank you again for taking part in this.
It's my pleasure. I hope it's success. I mean, I hope it turns out well.
I'm sure it will.